Hello, everyone. I just got back from 6.5 months of traveling in Southeast Asia, where I was looking at traditional fishing boats. And I traveled in Vietnam and Malaysia and Indonesia and the Philippines, much of the time with my wife. And I was studying how these boats were designed, how they were made, how technology moved between boat yards, and how trust was encouraged by all the stakeholders with design innovations that were introduced and new technologies. So that's what I've been up to. So this is not really a report directly on traditional boat building, but I've been dealing with that for many years. So I first went to some of these boat yards 30 years ago in Malaysia specifically, but also in Indonesia. And so I was there again 16 years ago for an extended time, meaning 5 months. And now I'm here 16 years later, spending a good time and actually a broader geographical range than I had before. So, and even 40 years ago, 1984, that was when I first went to Southern Asia as sort of the backpacker type thing. And that was, um, yeah, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and then Europe earlier in 83. So anyway, I've had a long time to look at these boats, and one of the things that's interesting is they have not changed much. So sometimes you think that the world is changing quickly around you, but there's boat builders that are building things the exact same way as when I first saw them 30 years ago. In fact, even some of the boat operations are exactly the same, and that's kind of encouraging. It kind of means you can touch history in a way with this. And this is sort of an example that I met up. It's kind of a funny story. I met up with a fisherman, or a boat builder rather, who I'd first met 16 years ago. And he's now 74, I think. And he's still building boats exactly the same way. Some slight differences because they're using traps more now. But, uh, and no, he looks the same. And when I first got to this community, I remembered roughly where he lived and I tried to find him. And I couldn't find him. It'd been 16 years. And then I met these people that helped me find all the boat builders, and it was so neat to see him again. And 30 years ago, I don't remember him specifically. I guess he was there. I just can't recall. But even one of the boat builders I visited, I still remember walking on the gangplanks 30 years ago, which looked exactly the same. So in the rainy season, it keeps you above the mud. So encouragement, I think, for younger people that you can still see things almost exactly as they were many decades prior. And I thought that was good because, everyone's always saying how, well, you should have seen it 10 years ago. That's like the common mantra in travel. Yeah. And here's some like delightful exceptions. In fact, I took a short video of people loading a ship in Sulawesi in Indonesia. And what I especially liked about it, it was men carrying burlap sacks on their back to a platform that was lifted by an onboard derrick on a wooden boat, a wooden cargo boat. So it looked like it was from 100 years ago. Now it was a power, engine powered boat rather than a sailboat, but still, I thought that was really interesting. I recognize it as a slice of history. And one advantage of this sort of long-term longitudinal study is I think I've got an eye for what has changed, what hasn't changed, and what is especially unique. And so I was able to pursue those things. So anyway, just in real summary, I went with Beth to Malaysia. We went right over to Vietnam and stayed in southern Vietnam, the Ho Chi Minh City and Mekong Delta. And that wasn't, well, anyway, then back to Malaysia, and Beth was with me for some time. And then she came back to the US. I went to Indonesia, specifically Banda Aceh and the northern tip of Sumatra, and started my investigations there in earnest. And maybe it was my second day there. I had a lot of contacts. I have a contact network there, mainly among university faculty. But anyway, they met me at 9:30 at night. We had coffee because it was Ramadan, so it was really late. And then by midnight, we were out in the boat yards. One of the faculty's father was a boat builder. So anyway, this kind of really intense start to that part of the trip. And then went to Palaway, which is an island off there, and saw tap taps and a lot of really interesting sampans. My study was on larger boats, but I had to focus on that because the sampans, these smaller boats, are all over the place. Really wonderful. Love to look at it, but anyway. I had to scope things in a bit. So then went through Sumatra, down to, well, I won't go all through all the cities, but down to Medan and then over the other coast, and uh, really a wonderful excursion through Sumatra and to at least one of the other offshore islands there, and then down all the way down to the southern part in Limpung, then went over to Java and all the way across to Surabaya from from the west to the east coast, and from there up to Sulawesi, then went back to Malaysia and met Beth there. She flew back from the U.S. and ended up in Malaysia again. So kind of like a ring around the South China Sea. Did not go to Borneo, but I was in Borneo in '09. So it was sort of the ring, except for I didn't go to Thailand either because Thailand is kind of unique. I was trying to avoid heavily touristic areas, I guess. One thing that was unique is I never lost my passion for exploring boats and boat design. It was like a big puzzle to me because I saw more and more things. And after many months, normally I would think I'd get bored of something, but my interest in boats has been long standing ever since even as a child. Can't explain it, but it is that way. And so that was really good. So I'd be going into boats and seeing new things and still excited by it. And that was really a treat considering I did it day in and day out. And of course, it was very sweaty. I kind of joked to myself because I talked to myself a lot since I was alone a lot. I'd have days where I'd only sweat through my shirt, and then there's days I sweat through my shirt and pants. So that's kind of two different types of workloads. So like the middle part of the trip, I was by myself, which is what I did when I was, very young out of college, traveled by myself. And that's a whole different type of thing. It's kind of free in a way, but it also is kind of lonely. So it was interesting to contend with those feelings. And that was, good and bad. So it was very nice to get back together with my wife. And then my daughter even came over towards the very end. And then when I came back in end of July, I got to see my son, so that was nice.